Hello and welcome back to the Hazzabhajan YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time to continue on with this series that I am currently running, where I look at various clubs and rank their record signings, or each of their record signings that they have made since 1992, from worst to best. I have done this with Manchester City and Manchester United, and if you want to check either of those ones out, there'll be a link to one of them at the end of this video, or you can go onto my channel and see if you can find the videos on there. They're quite recent, so they should be pretty easy to find. For the third instalment in this series, I am focusing on, by numbers at the very least, the most successful team in English football history and one of the best teams in the world right now, and that is of course Liverpool. Like my previous two videos in this series, the players will be ranked on how good of a signing they were to Liverpool rather than how good they were or are as players. And of course this is just my opinion and you are more than welcome to disagree with me, but please do so respectfully and with the same criterion applied. I don't want you to say that X player is better than Y player so he should have featured higher, because that's not what I'm ranking it based on. Now, there is an asterisk that I have to bring up already, as Naby Keita was signed in 2016 for what was then a club record fee of £52 million, but the transfer didn't actually go ahead until the summer of 2018, by which point Liverpool had already broken their transfer record again. After a bit of consideration, I've decided not to include him in my rankings, as he wasn't a club record signing when he officially joined the club, although for what it's worth, he would probably be around 6th or 7th if he was put into this list. Let's have a look at the 9 players who are eligible to feature though, and how I would rank them from worst to best as signings. 9th. Andy Carroll. Someone has to get us started in this video, and by a significant margin, I'm afraid that player is Andy Carroll. Now, Carroll wasn't by any means a bad footballer. He had, after all, scored 17 goals in the Championship to fire Newcastle to promotion in 2009-10 and bagged 11 in just 19 games during the first half of the 2010-11 season. A bullish target man with a powerful shot on him, which he demonstrated with a 25-yard thunderbolt against the Reds in December 2010, Liverpool saw it fit to spend £35 million on him in January 2011 on deadline day as a replacement for someone who we'll talk about later on. Unfortunately, he was injured upon arrival, a theme which would become increasingly more common throughout the rest of his career to date, taking over a month to make his debut and having to wait nearly 3 months to score his first goals for the club. His style of play was never going to fit in with the Reds' system, and so it proved the following season, as despite playing 47 times in all competitions, the most he's ever managed in one campaign, he could only muster 9 goals. Admittedly, one of them was the winner in the FA Cup semi-final versus local rivals Everton, which Jamie Carragher said was worth £35 million in and of itself. But that summer, Liverpool gave up on him and loaned him to West Ham, a move which would become permanent the next summer for £15 million. Ultimately, the injury-plagued Geordie was an out-of-place striker who never really fitted in on Merseyside, and his subpar performances, combined with his huge original fee and comparatively low sell-on value, makes him a shoo-in for last place. 8th. Phil Babb. The moment which people remember Phil Babb's time at Liverpool for came in a game against Chelsea in 1998, when he slid with both of his legs open onto the post in an ultimately unsuccessful attempt to stop a goal. And it's not exactly a ringing endorsement when that unfortunate incident is his enduring legacy. And if you haven't seen that clip before, all I can say is brace yourselves. Following some really impressive displays at the Hazzabhajan's defence at the 1994 World Cup, Liverpool's manager Roy Evans decided that Babb was worth bringing to Anfield for £3.5 million from Coventry, breaking the club's transfer record fee in the process. However, Evans experimented with a 3-5-2 formation, which required his defenders to be good on the ball and precise in the pass, which Babb, with the best will in the world, was not, as his kick it long and defend at all costs style of play suited a 2-man centre-back pairing much better. He did make 170 appearances for the Reds in all competitions, but after a couple of years, he lost his starting spot in the team, and upon Gerard Houlier's appointment as manager in 1998, he was deemed surplus to requirements. Surprisingly, Babb decided to see out the remainder of his contract, angering Liverpool supporters in the process, and he made 0 appearances for the club in his final campaign for them, before moving to Sporting Club de Portugal in 2000 for absolutely nothing. 7th. Djibril Cissé. I think this transfer could have gone much better if it weren't for circumstances beyond the club, and indeed the players' control. Djibril Cissé really did look like a shrewd signing by Liverpool back in 2004, albeit to the tune of £14 million, as he'd scored 75 goals in his previous 3 campaigns for Auxerre, including 26 in Ligue 1 in 2003-04, a tie which had won him the league's Golden Boot. Admittedly, the striker didn't exactly start particularly well at Anfield, with just 3 goals by mid-October, but a freak incident in which his boot got caught in the Ewood Park turf saw him fracture both his tibia and fibia. Remarkably, he returned to action just 6 months later and scored a penalty in Liverpool's 2005 Champions League final shootout win over AC Milan, and the following season, despite playing predominantly on the right wing rather than through the middle, he still notched up a respectable tally of 19 goals in all competitions. However, he then broke his other leg in June 2006, but Marseille agreed a loan deal for him later that summer, which would become permanent in 2007 for around €8 million. You can probably file this transfer under the category of what might have been, but a sell-on value of just over half of what they originally paid for him does bring this signing down to 7th. 6th, Stan Collymore. Stan Collymore was hot property at Nottingham Forest in 1995, as his 22 goals fired the club to 3rd place in the 1994-95 campaign, but he was an unpopular figure at the City ground and looked set to leave before too long. After Manchester United turned him down in favour of Andrew Cole in January 1995, Liverpool swooped in the following summer to sign him for £8.5 million, which was not only a club record fee, but also a British transfer record fee, which, interestingly enough, is the only time that Liverpool have set such a record in their entire history. He formed a great partnership with Robbie Fowler up top and netted 19 goals in all competitions, including the winner in that famous 4-3 victory over Newcastle in April 1996, as well as supplying 11 others for his teammates. Another solid season followed with 16 strikes to his name, but his off-the-pitch antics, alongside other members of the so-called Spice Boys, garnered him more press attention than his performances on the pitch did. By the end of the campaign, Evans began to drop him in favour of a teenage sensation called Michael Owen, and that summer, Collymore joined his boyhood club Aston Villa for £7 million, where his career sadly petered out. When assessing his time at Liverpool though, he had 2 very good, if not quite stunning, campaigns for the club, although they still made a slight loss on him, so I think 6th is about right. 5th, Emile Heskey. A man who came in at number 69 out of the 100 players who shook the COP vote back in 2013, Emile Heskey is sadly more remembered these days for the memes that spawned from his supposed incapability of scoring goals throughout the early to mid 2010s, which have detracted from his strengths and talents as a footballer. He hadn't been the most prolific of players at his first club, Leicester, netting 46 goals in just under 200 games for the Foxes, but he was an absolute menace to opposition defences, with his pace, strength, selflessness, and ability to bring his teammates into play with his excellent hold-up play. Therefore, Gerard Houllier signed him in March 2000 for £11 million to, as Ian Rush called it, give Liverpool a different dimension up top. In 2000-2001, he scored 22 goals and formed a brilliant partnership with Michael Owen, who won the Ballon d'Or in 2001, but later said, "If you know your partner in crime is going to make the best decision for the team, you can read that and get yourself in the right place." Fact was, Emile helped me make the right decisions. It summed up the 62-capped Englishman to a T, sacrificing his own personal stats to help his teammates and only really being acknowledged by those who played alongside him. That being said, he did only score at a rate of over 1 goal every 4 games over the next 3 years and left for Birmingham in 2004 for just £3.75 million. But for what he brought to the club and the partnership and understanding he forged with Owen, he rightly takes a mid-table place in this list. 4th, Fernando Torres. The top 4 were all, without a shadow of a doubt, world-class signings by Liverpool, and you could very easily put any one of them in top spot or 4th for varying reasons, and I wouldn't argue with you for a split second. Someone has to come in 4th for me personally though, and after a bit of consideration, I've given it to Fernando Torres. The Spaniard was hot property at Atletico Madrid, as he notched double figures for goals for 5 straight seasons in La Liga and starred for Spain at the 2006 World Cup. Rafael Benitez made the move for him in 2007 for £20.2 million, and in his debut campaign, Torres bagged 33 goals in all competitions, including 24 in the league, and earned a spot in the PFA Team of the Year and third in 2008 Ballon d'Or voting. Whilst his next 2 years were blighted by injuries as the explosive pace began to wear off a touch, he still hit 39 goals across those 2 campaigns, including 18 in just 22 games in 2009-10. However, despite experiencing a slight dip in form during the first half of the 2010-11 campaign, Liverpool still more than doubled their money on him when they sold him to Chelsea, who had been tracking him for years, for a British record fee of £50 million on January deadline day. Torres famously struggled at Stamford Bridge, meaning that Liverpool got a striker in his prime years and made an enormous profit on him as his powers were starting to wane. With all that in mind, fourth still seems very low, but it speaks volumes of what's to come. Third, Virgil van Dijk. Again, third place for Virgil van Dijk could be seen as blasphemous, but I think it's just about right, purely because of the enormous fee that was involved in his original transfer. After impressing for a few seasons at Southampton, Van Dijk dug in his heels and demanded a move to Liverpool in the summer of 2017, and whilst the Saints held out on that occasion, the Dutchman eventually got his way and moved to Anfield the following January for £75 million, which was then a world record fee for a defender and remains Liverpool's record transfer as of the time of this recording. Aged 26 when he joined, Van Dijk has hit new heights over the last 4.5 years, coming across as though he's coasting through games with his calm, effortless and composed displays at the back, and he's become the best centre-back in the league, potentially by a country mile. A PFA Player of the Year award in 2018-19 has been complemented by winners' medals in every competition Van Dijk has played in for the club, including the Premier League and the Champions League, and it was no coincidence that when he suffered an ACL injury in 2020-21, Liverpool looked half as competent at the back and slipped to third in the league, finishing on a tally of just 69 points. He should still be a mainstay in the Reds' backline for the next half a decade as they continue to challenge with Europe's elite, but he is a reluctant third place in this ranking just because of how much he cost back in January 2018. Second, Luis Suarez. The signing between Van Dijk, Luis Suarez and the man up next as Liverpool's best record signing since 1992 is nigh on impossible, but that is the task I bestowed upon myself for some reason, and after some consideration, Suarez is narrowly edged out into second place. Signed on the same day as Andy Carroll as a replacement for Torres from Ajax for £22.8 million, Suarez's transfer was officially signed off first, meaning that he was a club record signing for all of a few hours at max. After a promising debut half-season, Suarez's first full campaign saw him show signs of the world-class player he would become, netting 11 goals in the league, including an obligatory hat-trick against Norwich. From 2012 to 2014 though, the Uruguayan was probably the best player in the entire league, and arguably the third or fourth best player in the world. And not only did Liverpool fans know it, but so too did Suarez. He was just about the complete centre forward, quick, strong, energetic and capable of scoring all types of goals and producing moments of pure magic. 23 goals and 11 assists in 2012-13 was followed up by a spellbinding 31 goals and 17 assists in 2013-14 as he scooped up the individual player of the year accolades and almost single-handedly dragged the Reds kicking and screaming to within a Steven Gerrard slip of the league title. His time at Anfield was marred by him biting Branislav Ivanovic, which saw him receive a 10-game suspension, a racism scandal with Patrice Evra, which saw him receive a retrospective 8-match ban, and a transfer request in the summer of 2013. But when Suarez was eventually sold to Barcelona in 2014, the Reds almost tripled their money on him as they sold him for £65 million, potentially rising to £75 million. Suarez would flourish in Catalonia whilst the Reds floundered for a couple of years, unable to replace him sufficiently. Arguably, that is, until the man who takes top spot in this ranking came along. First, Mohamed Salah. The Reds' Egyptian king who can't stop running down the wing, Mo Salah takes top spot in this list as arguably the best player for the Reds during their best era since the 1980s, never mind just their best record signing since that time. After 2 impressive campaigns at Roma, Liverpool decided to take a punt on Salah in 2017 for £36.9 million, although eyebrows were raised at the fee, probably because of Salah's struggles in the Premier League when he was on Chelsea's books a few years prior. He silenced those doubters in the most emphatic manner possible, breaking the 38-game record for the most goals in a single Premier League season, a record which was previously joint held by Suarez with 32, as well as bagging 10 in Liverpool's run to the Champions League final. Whilst he hasn't quite been able to match that extraordinary standard in the 4 years since, to say that he has come close each and every year is testament to Salah's quality, as he has scored 158 goals in 266 games in all competitions as of the time of this recording. He signed a new contract this summer that will keep him at the club until 2025, and he will undoubtedly be the perfect mentor to their new superstars like Luis Diaz, Fabio Carvalho and Harvey Elliott, having already been the figurehead of the Reds' re-emergence as a global superpower for the last 5 years. The best player at the club right now, and their best record signing since 1992, in my humble opinion. And that just about wraps up today's video, looking at how I would rank each and every one of Liverpool's record signings that they have made during the Premier League era. If you disagree with my rankings, let me know why and which positions you would change down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, ring the notification bell to be notified whenever I upload a video straight away. Check out the other 2 videos I've made in this series looking at Manchester City and Manchester United's record signings since 1992, and you can follow me on Twitter at Hazzabhajan. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I will see you then.